Welcome to part 2 of this series where we are going to focus on the embroidery of the gauntlets. We're going to start in the central section and then start to make our way out. I'm going to split the sequence into different chapters because the embroidery is such a big part of this project. I'm quite conscious of not missing any important details that people want to know about, and also documenting each process in the right time frame. So apologies for the massive ridiculous gap in between the first video and this one, and brace yourselves because this is going to be a long video, so grab a drink. So I'm going to start with the gauntlet section of the mittens. I'm going to work a mitten at a time, just because of how quickly lockdown is changing. So I figured it might be better to get one mitten done rather than both. So as well, it sits quite nicely on the embroidery frame to have the velvet section and the silk section. But yeah, I'm going to start with the silk. I'm probably actually going to start with the central bit and get that looking straight and good, and then there's a good contrast and explanation between colour and gold work, and I think it'll be quite cool to see the eye finished quite quickly as well. I work best when I can see progress, and so I think if I start with the middle and then work outwards, with it being quite symmetrical in motifs, it might be better to go from the middle out, so then I can work on the same motif at the same time but just at opposite ends of the glove. I've got all my silk embroidery threads. These are all from DeVere yarns. I always get my silk threads from there, and also I have my tub of cotton and wool embroidery threads just in case I don't have the right colour, or if I run out or whatever, just in case. My emergency selection of embroidery threads. I always also have my gold work supplies, different thicknesses, gold pearl, and also spangles for filling in the gaps. I've also got a couple of pieces of silver jap stuff, just in case I feel like it needs some silver on it to tie in with the silver trim that will go around the seams. There's my needle. Just pop that in there for now. I do have my reference just here, so I might actually leave it just there. Obviously I've just done suggestions of colour, but I might make it a bit more elaborate as I refer to my research and reference material, whilst also keeping it my own style. I'm going to start with the white of the eye and get that filled in. So I'm just going to fill it in with a basic satin stitch because this is just a block colour. I'm not going to worry too much about it. I just want it filled in, really. Don't want the stitches to be too big, otherwise it'll just sort of unravel and look a bit messy. My thread isn't too long either. I could have gone a bit longer, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm not going to get any knots the other side of my embroidery frame. And I'm just curving round as if to create shadow with the stitch, just to get the roundness of the eyeball, if that makes sense. The way the stitch direction will give off the right contrast and texture, and it'll reflect the light in a sense that it'll trick you into thinking that it is actually a round 3D thing. As we go into the 17th century, we sort of are moving away from 2D embroidery in the sense of they were very flat images, and especially throughout the medieval era, it's quite cartoonish, really. I'd say anyway. That's how I'd describe it. And we're sort of moving into the realms of more. We've got more variety of colour. We've got more shades coming through, different techniques. This is the sort of the opening chapter, really, for then the really detailed embroideries of the 18th century. And I mean detailed in the sense that it was almost painting with thread. If you do embroidery, what is your favourite thing to either listen to or have on in the background while you sew? I tend to listen to music quite a lot, whether it be Radiohead or Oasis, Rolling Stones, Robbie Williams. It depends what I'm doing, how fast I want to go, and what I'm in the mood for, really. Sometimes I just shove a TV series on in the background, something I've watched a million times, something like Miranda or My Family, or, you know, sort of old TV shows. That you can just have a laugh to, that you don't really have to concentrate on, it's just an easy watch. I've also been enjoying recently the Big Brother's Best Bits programme. I'm just gonna lightly rub the threads just to get rid of any separation that might have happened through the stitch, just to sort of blend it together. But as you can see, I'm going in this direction and working my way round. So then it should have, I mean, I'm starting to see it with the sunlight coming from that direction, the shade that's being created through the direction of stitch. Sometimes I do embroidery with a thimble, sometimes I don't. It really depends on the atmosphere, what I'm working with, the fibres I'm working with, materials. With today being 30 degrees already at 1 o'clock, I'm choosing not to wear a thimble. Unfortunately, my camera cuts out at 20 minutes apparently, so I didn't realise and had just carried on embroidering as if nothing had happened and chatting away, and it obviously didn't film. So here's the stage I'm at now. I've completed the eye in the silk. I think it looks very effective actually, with the differences of the stitch direction, different colours and things. I'm glad I went with blue in the end. Next I'm going to do this section here, which according to my plan is in silver. So I am going to use this lovely silver. Now I'm going to start on this section here, the two sort of crescent moon shapes, and I'm going to use this silver, I think, just to create a bit of definition and a bit of contrast, because this section here is going to be gold, so I think it'll look quite nice, because also on the top of the gold I'm going to have this sort of snaking round, so I think it'll tie in quite nicely there. I'm just going to couch it on, nothing too spectacular. I'm just going to use this neutral coloured thread as well, just so that it sort of blends in but isn't too, you know, it's not going to upset the silver at all. I did complete the eye, but I don't know if I'm actually happy with it, so I'm going to leave it as it is for the moment and then revisit it once I've got a bit more done. I don't feel like it's completely 17th century-esque, in the sense that half the time the eyelids were a lot more prominent, and because I don't want to take this motif any further up, I think I might have to just lay over the top some more stitches just to give that sort of half open eye look that you see quite often within 17th century things. But we'll see how it looks once I've got a big section done, and if it looks too modern and a bit too icky, then I'll go in after. But we'll decide that later. So now on to the silver. Sometimes what I like to do is poke the end of metal thread through to the other side, but I think what I'm going to do is just encase it for the moment. So I'm going to fill the innards, and then I'm going to go all the way around the outside of the motif as a sort of border effect. I'm actually going to do quite a lot of couching threads over the top, just with it being a semicircular thing. I want it to be smooth, I don't want it to be like edge, 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 edge. I don't want it to be like that, I want it to be a smooth curve. So I've got the innards filled in, so now I'm just going to do the border. I'm just going to slightly raise it, I think, over those bends where I followed the curve, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. now I'm going to move on to the central section just there, and I'm going to be using a gold twisted, well, this is a special twist fine, it's labelled, it's from Golden Hind, it's really pretty, whereas the silver was a central thread which then is wrapped with metal rather than an actual twisted thing. And actually I'm going to couch it down with red just to create a bit of extra drama and colour, and also just tie in with the hand section of the mittens, the velvet. So I'm just keeping that tension tight, and I'm going to go there. And I think with me doing a contrasting stitch, I will actually do it a sort of brickwork effect rather than having stripes. Which of course means I've got to be super careful with how evenly spaced things are. I'm just doing it by eye, I'm not going to go into such detail as to measure each divide. Because this strip starts off thicker and then as it descends it gets thinner, because I've reached the centre of the thinnest bit, I'm actually then going to start on this side and then fill in that side to the top, so that the outer two angles are actually similar rather than looking weird, because if I carried on as I am, the entire thing would be facing diagonally rather than having it triangular. So same again from the top. As you can see, I've already completed the right hand leaf motif, which is this one here on the design, and I've actually made it slightly risen. I've done it quite unconventionally, really. I think the sort of advice with gold work is to use felt and thread to raise something because it gives a cleaner finish, but I wanted it quite dramatically risen, so I just used a bit of wadding and a scrap bit of calico, which I'll cut into shape. So I've just used this. This is my ever shrinking overlocker sample bit to make sure that my threads are even. And anyway, so I just cut a leaf shape under, stitched that down, and then applied my gold thread over the top. So let's do that. There we go. So now that is laid down, it is time for the exciting part, for the gold thread. This is just the modern Madeira heavy metals thread. It's really, really durable. You know, you can even wash it and put it through the sewing machine and everything. I really like this thread. It's fab. And it's really easy to sew with as well. You know how, well, you might not know, but sometimes with gold threads, when you're sewing with them, the metal comes away from the center core thread. So you might see it when I was sewing the silver section, it was sometimes pulling away, and sometimes it loses its coil. But this doesn't seem to do that. It's really good. So I'm actually going to start by going around the outside, just doing a simple back stitch, just so I can get the shape that I want. I know I've already drawn it out, and this might be a wasted time for some people, but I like to do this just to get to feel the shape that I'm going to end up with, especially because I've altered the right hand shape to match the left hand one a little bit more. So if I need to manipulate the look of this side, then I can do it now and follow this line rather than the pencil line. Which I guess the argument could be, well, if you were more accurate and ironed your fabric when you were tracing the design, then it would be more accurate, and yeah, it probably would be, but hey ho. Now I have doubled this thread over just because it is quite fine, and when I was doing the other side I was using it singularly, and I thought this is just a waste of time. If I double it up, obviously I'm getting double the results in half the time, so I ended up changing technique sort of midway through, which is okay. It ended up looking nice in the end, I think, so that's the main thing. See, like here, I need to go a bit further up with the leaf shape, and although I'm not wanting to get it exactly symmetrical, I am wanting to get it a little bit better, so I'm going to just shove that up there. There, so I've gone all the way around now. So now it starts to just over sew over the top of the padding, just to fill out that gap. And I am going the sort of other side of either side of that back stitch that I've just done, so you won't actually see it much at all. It's just so that I know where to aim with my thread. And you'll start to see how much this padding actually starts to shrink and become quite compacted. I mean, you saw how much went into the actual pad itself. Sometimes it's easier to do a bit of a stitch just to flatten it if you've ended up with a bit of a lump there. Here we go, so this is the central column. I'm very excited to reach this stage and see the silver alongside the gold as well. I think that section in particular works really well. I hope that wasn't too long or boring for you. I find watching embroidery videos quite relaxing, so I hope it was quite enjoyable for you and you might have learnt a thing or two. I'm quite excited to see the embroidery take shape, so in the next video we'll be going on to the grapes, the strawberries and completing the humongous goldwork leaf section. So we are just going to go from the centre to the next two sections. With it being symmetrical, I might as well work on the same motifs on either side, so then I can definitely get the right colours and the right techniques down without sort of forgetting what I'm doing. Thank you so much for watching once again. I hope you are looking forward to seeing what happens next. I'll leave links to my website, my Instagram, my Etsy page and whatever else down below if you want to check those out. So I will see you in the next video.